So Josh, thanks for making the time to come on Right Brain Insights. It's a bit of a post-workout session today, and hence the clothing. It's a little bit different. And on a freezing Melbourne winter's day, but keeping warm with a good whiskey. Mate, appreciate you making the time.
Well, thanks for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Now, mate, your background's an interesting one. So you're a personal trainer with Virgin, yeah, but you also run your own business.
I do.
Yeah. And how long have you been in the personal training game?
I think I'm coming up on around 17 years now.
Yeah, fantastic.
I was in corporate prior to that for about 10 years and then made the transition into fitness and haven't looked back.
Yeah, awesome. And one of the big reasons I wanted to bring you on was from what I've seen with your training experience is actually it's not just what you see, for instance, on Instagram, young guys coming up with all different exercises, diets, so on and so forth. Almost anyone in their 20s can kind of smash that out. But, you know, when I came across you, you were late 40s, hanging upside down on a couple of Olympic rings out in the park. And you'd actually just worked with Eugenia to help her, my wife Eugenia, helping her recover from her transplant journey. What I really wanted to talk to you about was this intersection between physical performance, the body, the mind, and business performance, which you'd see with some of your clients in the personal training game. Because it's something that I see over and over again with my clients, but also felt with myself working with you for a number of years now, that as the body gets stronger, as the mind gets stronger, the business gets stronger, life gets stronger. And also an exploration of what actually getting stronger means. Because it's something I've seen in working with you. Getting stronger means dealing with things that you maybe don't want to deal with. It's putting yourself under stress. It's having the discipline to stick with it. It's playing the long game, not the short game. It's de-risking and deloading and avoiding injury. It's taking the time to recover. It's taking the time to understand what's working, what's not. It's also taking the time to measure. So there's a lot of parallels between what you do and what RBI does when it comes to clients and their financial performance. I really wanted to explore that intersection.
Yeah, that's come up in a number of our conversations about the parallels that we have noticed between our two disciplines, because I guess we're dealing with people who are confronting challenging things. So a lot of similar aspects of human nature comes out. We just use different tools to try and get excellence out of people, which is really cool. I know that we've agreed on a number of philosophies, and it doesn't surprise me because I've always felt that physical training is like a microcosmos of life. Because if you think about it, you're intentionally putting your body under stress to force it to adapt, to get better at whatever it is you're practicing. So it's going to bring up all kinds of things for the people doing that, undertaking that. And the body and the brain connection is something that I've had to tackle, get my head around, because you would imagine that as a trainer, I just say, okay, here's your program, do this many reps, this many sets, and I'll see you next week. But in truth, it's a lot more about the mind stuff. I think that if someone's on board, they're there for the right reasons, they have acknowledged what the deficits are that they're experiencing and the consequences of maybe neglect that it's having on their life in a detrimental way, and then have made a decision to do something about it, to change something in a positive way, they're going to have to confront a lot of those areas of weakness. And so what it tends to do is triggers a lot of insecurities for people. It unearths a lot of discomfort. So taking people by the hands and saying what you're going through is very normal. It's actually a necessary part of the process, because if you want to get stronger, evolution has designed our ability to adapt in a very exquisite way. And how it does it is, it says, if you want to get stronger, then you have to make yourself feel weak a lot in the gym. Push the limits of your strength. So you literally have to come face to face with the limits of your ability every time you train if you want to move that needle. And what can happen with a lot of people is they just get down on themselves. They just go, well, geez, I'm rubbish. I used to be so much stronger. I used to be able to X, Y, and Z, and now here I am, and this feels awful. And I try to help them reframe the situation by understanding that, okay, that may be the case, but you're actually doing something about it. This takes courage to confront neglect, avoidance, procrastination, weakness. If you want to get fitter, you have to make yourself feel unfit a lot. It's literally saying, stare in the mirror at the things you don't like about yourself and do that every time you come into the gym, so you can understand why someone might not last very long. If you look at the average person who signs up to a gym membership, how many of them are there a year later?
Yeah.
Probably not many, because they're staring at their demons in a lot of ways. And so
in a way, you're staring into the abyss.
Yeah.
And that sucker, like Dante's Inferno, it's limitless. You can keep going. The depths of hell know no limit. So you want to stare into that.
Mm-hmm.
You can, hey, I'm not good enough in this way and that 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 way.
So
Yeah. Or by staring into it, you can use that and channel it in the right way. And it's interesting what you talk about with stress and that journey towards physical performance. I see with businesses, and particularly business owners in their teams, working towards financial performance. It's the same thing. Through neglect, through not having a goal, through apathy, entropy, whatever, businesses end up getting weak. You can literally measure it in the financials if you know what to look for. Sometimes the fact they don't have financials is the dead giveaway. You know, people talk about bloated balance sheets and things like that. It's like, hey, actually, we can take the assets you've got and reinvest them in particular ways, or we start doing things that you haven't done before, maybe that feel a little uncomfortable at first, but wait to see the results.
Yep.
You know,
so many parallels.
Yeah, there's so many parallels, and like, you know, one for instance, I could see like from you and I working together, like Olympic rings. I was dead against it. Like when we started working out together, it was about trying to find out like what actually I would resonate with, because I didn't know. You know, I just knew you were a magician working with my wife, and seeing the results. You literally pulled her out of the abyss. So we're like, okay, cool. You know what you're doing, right? Hey, can you help me? Because I've kind of jumped in the abyss as well. And the interesting thing was, like, we had to discover what was actually going to work. And it was literally a FAFO strategy. It's like, we have to, hey, expose yourself to this. Cool. You like it, dislike, what's it going to take? And then actually understanding that, hey, you know what? We're in it for the long game. And you were very clear on setting that expectation to begin with. This is a long-term thing. So it's okay if we encounter some things that you actually don't like. We're just going to drop them off, focus on something else. Yeah. Yeah,
very, very true. I wish that, it was like Matrix style. I could just stick a cable into the back of your head and my head. And then I just know. I can just go
download that stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, but there are no quick fixes.
No. So
there are no quick fixes. Even if you want to jump on steroids, there's going to be a issue, right?
Pros and
for
cons.
long-term exposure.
Yep.
The same things coming out about Ozempic around bone density and all these sorts of things, all the shortcuts.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, well, there's no other way than through. There's no other way than actually channeling and having the discipline and away you go. And it's the same thing with financial performance. It's actually about making the critical decisions and often the tough decisions and what they start as uncomfortable. So on that, when you think about your clients and the success stories that you've had, what is it about a client that allows them to push through from the short-term pain to the longer-term gain?
Look, everyone's so different, and that's why after 17 years I'm still not bored of personal training at all, because everyone brings something different and challenging to the table. Some people are internally motivated, they come with a reason, they're very clear, they just want someone to draw a map for them. Here you go. And then, I just have to be their cheer squad from the sideline. Other people are overcome with self-doubt and other issues. And there's a lot of clutter to push through in order to get them there. So it's definitely a bespoke approach. If I could put my finger on anything that I think I do well to help people get from where they start to where they want to get to, is by showing them that I care. I think that's critical. To helping them really connect with their why. What's the reason they're truly there? And I explore that. And this is where sort of my background in dabbling in life coaching has really helped me, because I think your average trainer might say, what do you want to achieve with a new client? They say, I want to lose, some weight and I want to get a bit more tone. And they're like, great, come see me 3 times a week and pay this much. Yeah, it's always the why.
Why do you want to lose some weight? Why do you want to get toned?
That's it. So as a coach, you've got to get comfortable with just drilling down a little bit. Not everyone's up for that, because in the first meeting, I'm a stranger. Why would someone spill their guts to me, and share their deepest, darkest fears and secrets with me? But what I try to do is let them know that firstly, it's a safe space, that I'm here to help them get what's important for them. The first thing I need to do is understand why they're there and what their driving force is. And as a coach, if I understand someone's real motivation, I can help them stay focused for the long haul, because there'll be times when it's cold, or they're missing pizza, or they've had an argument, with someone close to them, and they might not feel like going to the gym. What's going to make the difference between them saying, no, I made a promise to myself? There's a few strategies I use there, and I'm happy to go into some of them with you, but it starts off with helping them really connect with their why, thinking about what's the consequences of not changing. And I use lots of, based on the individual, certain visualizations help. Maybe you could call it neuro-linguistic programming, but for example, imagining a fork in the road. Just saying, okay, you're here now, let's extrapolate into the future 10, 20, 30 years.
It's so funny you say that, because the parallels between your world and mine blow my mind, in that when I sit down with a client and explore the financial performance of their business, hey, you're not making enough profit, your cash flow's in the tank. All right, cool. Well, where that all starts to correct it is actually understanding their why. Why are you in business? What are you looking to actually do? Right? What are your goals? This isn't about being the richest man in the graveyard. I can tell you about plenty of people who have killed themselves, that have enough resources to be, do, and have anything they want, but they end their lives. So it's like, okay, so it's not about money. Money doesn't equal fulfillment, but it's a tool. And understanding the why. What are you looking to do, and why? You want a better future for the kids. You want to buy a new house. You want to actually just really enjoy the business. I don't know, it doesn't matter, but trying to connect with that, and then looking at, okay, well, based on what your why is, what's it going to take to fund that why? And now you've got a frame of reference to understand what the business performance needs to be, and you can understand where you're at, where you need to be, and then you can start building a plan to get there.
That's right.
And hey, what investments are going to be made along the way? What do we think's going to take us there?
What are you prepared to sacrifice in order to realize that?
Yeah, what are you prepared to sacrifice? But then also, just like you and I with freaking Olympic rings, it's like, hey, we're going to try something, and you know what? Sounds like a good idea. Would Olympic rings get me the result? Yeah, they probably would. But like, motivation in the tank. Yeah. Because you're just like, hey, this isn't enjoyable. This isn't fun. There's actually something better. And it's the same thing in business. Of all the possible ways you can go, what are the opportunity costs there? You could go this way, yeah, but you could also go this way, okay? And to a certain extent, there's only so much you can plan out. And we'll actually use, just like you're saying with extrapolation and visualizations, is we will use software to extrapolate and quite literally visualize what the financial results of those decisions are moving forward. Sort of showcase what the future looks like.
I think with AI, improving so rapidly, like maybe there's an opportunity where I can do that for people. Like plug into AI the consequences
of
here's you in 15 years time.
No, remember what was that movie? 10 Things I Hate About You, the one with Heath Ledger in the 90s. She wants to go out on the date and they get her to wear the pregnancy suit. Remember that? That's hilarious.
I haven't seen that one, but I'm going to go see it.
Dude, you've got to see it.
So
it's classic.
So part of understanding the why is really drilling down and not being afraid to keep asking questions after the first one, because people will often deflect you initially, but I think I'll just feel better if I... But why would you feel better? What do you think?
Sometimes you find it along the way too.
Sometimes you do, and sometimes I have to, because like I said, if I'm a relative stranger to someone asking them to spill their guts to me, it's a lot to ask of someone. Yeah. I try to engender trust early on through my manner, by sharing vulnerable things, whatever it takes to help someone just know that I'm on their team. And the more they share with me, the more effective I can be as a coach for their benefit. Usually over time people will learn to trust. They're putting their health and safety in my hands, so why not put their emotional health and safety in my hands whilst they're at it, and help them get to where they want to get to faster with less internal resistance. And if you, for example, could think about, what's the consequences of me not changing or getting worse, versus like you can even observe your internal chemistry changing. If I say, all right, how long have you been thinking about doing this for? Engaging a personal trainer and making some physical changes. They might say, 3 years. And, why do you think it's taking you that long? And if I start getting them to focus on their avoidance and their procrastination, the energy starts to drop, their posture starts to worsen, because they're focusing on
positive.
Yeah. But if I change it, if I say, all right, cool, let's change the channel. Let's say it's 5 years time or 12 months time, and you've done it. It's done. You came to me. I wrote a plan for you. You came in. You dedicated yourself to this process. You followed my advice around nutrition and exercise, and you know what? You've hit your goal. There you are, standing in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
Wearing a new outfit you just bought for yourself as a reward, and tell me what you see. Because visualization is a very powerful tool that helps drive people towards what they want. It's super important when it comes to goal setting, because it's human nature to want to look back in the past. Now, we tend to make our perception our reality, and our perception is what we focus on, and most people focus on the past rather than on the future. If you find someone who thinks about the future more often than not, you've got a pretty rare and exceptional person. Most people think about the mistakes they've made, maybe what hasn't gone well in the past. They want to change, but they've come to you with all this baggage of self-doubt.
Looking down into the pit. Yeah.
And I sort of liken it to steel cables anchoring you to the past. You're trying to move forward, but they're attached to weights. And you're dragging them forward. It's taking a lot of energy just every step, because you're taking your entire past with you on every step. And so what I try to do mentally is give them a big pair of badass bolt cutters and just start snapping those cables. And the best way to do it is to get them future focused and thinking towards what they want to achieve. So you're trying to change their perception by changing their focus. Don't worry about what's happened in the past. You didn't have me in the past. I'm going to make sure this is a successful endeavor for you this time, right? And I want you just to focus on what you want. And I'll draw you the map and I'll help you all along the way. And by the way, it's not necessarily going to be a straight line. And I think that's okay, because think about the discoverers of old, the captains who circumnavigated the globe. They didn't go in a straight line from one continent to the other.
Oh yeah, the road is narrow.
Oh, they zigzagged, because the current's going this way and the wind's going the other way, and they're grabbing the sextant, looking at the stars. So there's 1,000 little micro corrections to get there, and that's going to be your experience.
I'd argue there's even something Christ-like in what you're talking about. Right? That forgiveness of sin is, hey, don't worry about what's happened in the past. It's okay, release yourself from those bonds, focus on the future, you're free to do so. There's something really cool about that. And I think same thing in business, if it can be embraced. similar to you though, I find that a lot of people simply don't understand. Oh, I'll take it back a step. It's like simple, not easy. So every business owner wants to make more money, wants to make more cash. Cool. That's not to say capitalism is bad. It's what you can do with that money. The way you can invest it, employ more people, you can grow, you can have more value, you can add more impact. Brilliant. Okay, cool. How do you get there? Well, you've got these financial statements right in front of you that will literally tell you, if you know how to read them and look at them, they'll actually help you. They will guide you. It's right there in front of you as to what's working, what's not, why, and use the resources that you have. It's the same thing with your clients. They're eating something, right? Nutrition. They're moving around in some way, but are they being efficient? Are they being effective towards their goal? Now, if you don't know what your goal is, and you don't know how to even read the tools in front of you, such as you were teaching me about macros, how much protein, how to, what's the benefits of fasting and how to do it, actually how to. We were talking about what were you saying, creating your own exercises on the fly, something, a push, a pull.
These are like
balancing it out and
templates that help give some context to blow away the result. Because for anyone venturing into new territory, it's intimidating and it's scary. And if you walk into a gym in particular,
but it's also risky.
Yeah, it might not work.
Serious injury.
You could hurt yourself. You could fail. It could all be a bit hard, and you could give up, and you've got another story not succeeding.
Mess up your deadlift technique and watch what happens. Yeah. Same thing in business. Yeah. Go explore a new market that you all of a sudden you don't have insurance for, and watch what happens. Or you think you have insurance for. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're wading into new waters and it's unfamiliar territory, it is scary. It will elicit a lot of fearful emotions and you will doubt yourself. And in those situations, this is something else that we have in common. And I'm sure this is just one of another 1,000 we're probably going to identify in our chat tonight. Our clients all have a problem that they need solved, and they've realized that they're ineffective on their own. Like they've tried everything they can think of and they're not happy with the outcome. The thing that our clients or customers have in common is they've realized that they need help from someone who's walked that path before, who knows what the potholes are, what are the mistakes that often people make, has certain templates of success in their mind that they can share with them. And what that does is it blows the fog away and it clears what's otherwise a pretty scary and murky sort of future in front of them. Because walking into a gym for the first time, or if it hasn't been a while, you become it's overwhelming. The music, the clanging weights.
Hugely intimidating.
Even
more so now.
Everyone's
setting up their cameras, and by the way, you better not look at that.
Or Joey's fall beyond it. And they all seem to know what they're doing, and they all look fit. And the problem is that in that situation, and I'm sort of going to diverge from my own point and then forget what I was going to say before. I need your help with this, but they'll see other people doing things and they'll project all this stuff onto them. But what they don't know is whatever struggles that person that they've just assumed is the god of the gym.
Absolutely the same thing in business. You will see someone driving around in some fancy car and you will I've literally had clients do this in front of me where they will assume that, hey, that guy around the corner running that business is doing so well because he's rebranded and he's done this and he's got that. You have no idea if you pop the hood on that, the levels of debt, the stress,
what they've overcome. The poverty they've climbed out of to get there, or how much of it's smoke and mirrors.
So much of it is smoke and mirrors.
Are they taking financial steroids?
You see that all but that's effectively debt if it's used the wrong way.
That's right.
So that's an amplifier. It's right way, wrong way, so on and so forth. I want to circle back to something too that you mentioned earlier in our conversation. You were talking about stress and the benefits of stress. That actually, in order to increase your physical performance, you need to engage willingly with stress.
This is a truth. This is a fact. It's like gravity. It just is. And it's something that I didn't really understand or identify earlier on in my career. But I suppose with the push for longevity and biohacking and all this stuff, I came in contact with this term that I hadn't heard before, but the concept I understood very well, called Hormesis. And Hormesis is the term given to small amounts of stress applied triggers adaptations that make the organism stronger. So, and often they're small incremental increases in stress that safely allow someone to adapt to that. And this could happen physically, it could happen dietarily, it could happen temperature-wise, it could happen stress or mentally. For example, think about how stressful the world is when you're a child and it's all new and uncertain and you have no strength or power or understanding of how it all works. Very scary, right? You're very dependent on others. And as you grow up, you kind of encounter situations that are new and confusing. But then once you've been through it, the next time it happens, you're a little more easy with that situation. You've been through it before. It's a little less scary. And then if you encounter it again and again and again, it doesn't even...
If you want to grow, you're going to be repeating that every single time.
Yeah. It just doesn't get your heart rate up after a while. Whereas, you know, and a good example of this is public speaking. A lot of people in surveys rate public speaking as more scary to them than death. And the first time you do stand in front of a group of adults and talk, your mouth goes dry, your palms get sweaty, you forget what you were going to say, and you just want to punch yourself in the face repeatedly afterwards for all the mistakes you made. And then you have a choice to make. It's like, do I just assume that I'm terrible at public speaking and never do it again? Or do I say, that's the worst I'm ever going to do and it's only going to get better from here?
Natural instinct to catastrophize, yeah.
So then you reflect on it, you think about what you could have done better or worse, and then you go back and you are better the next time you public speak. And then you make a mistake and then you work on that. And then as you're more exposed to the fear causing stimulus, the less fear it produces. They use this in phobia.
And I'd argue it actually sets you free.
It does.
And I see that with businesses when we look at their financial statements about what has been, we peer into the past. Did we achieve what we wanted to achieve? What worked? What didn't? Why? What would we do again? What would we not do again? Now, to begin with, that's really uncomfortable because, just like you said in the very beginning of our conversation, it's exposing you to your mistakes. Hey, what's your goal? Right, well, as you look in the past, you see this and this and this and this and this, and you go down and down and down. But if you can do that over and over again, particularly with someone there who cares, genuinely cares, then you can actually point out, you can stop them from going too far. Say, hey, no, this doesn't mean you're a failure. It means we actually just got this wrong. If we were to do that over again and just fix that, look at what the result could have been. Interesting. So maybe where the growth is actually just not making that mistake. Guess what? We don't need to grow sales. In order to grow the bottom line, the actual result, your strength, your output, your ability to maneuver, your flexibility, whatever it might be, we don't need to drive revenue. We don't need to lift more weight. We actually just need to lift the weight we're doing correctly. Don't make a mistake. And away you go. Yeah. That's
a wonderful thing that you offer your clients. Because you've walked the path before, you can see it for what it is. For them, it's just like, it's confusing, it's scary, they don't know what the future holds, there's a lot of doubt. But because you can sort of see it objectively from a distance, you're there to say, hey, this is actually a good thing, even though it doesn't look or feel like it now, because we've just identified something really important that we can then do something about and change.
Which is something you and I have done over and over again in working together physically.
Yeah.
As you go, it's like, hey, this doesn't... I remember the first time you and I were doing deadlifts. So we started with, 15 kilos or something, and it was just about sorting out the technique.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, this is a waste of time. Either I'm going to put my back out or this is a waste of time. And I'm like, no, actually, no.
I'm chuckling because I remember you were ready to throw the weights across the oval.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah, but then you got it. And, and it was a breakthrough. And I'm often reminded that the things that we have to work harder for are more meaningful and important to us.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in helping someone learn to do something they've never done before than helping someone lift up, 1.5 more kilos than they did before. As exciting and as important as that is to that individual, it's so nice to see someone persevere and then get it. And that was very much what happened with you in the deadlifts. And now you're deadlifting a significant amount of weight. For a lot of reps, your strength and endurance is really impressive, and you haven't wrecked your back because we nailed the technique at the get-go. And I remember learning in PT school, they said something like, and I don't know how accurate these numbers are, but they said to learn to do an exercise perfectly, you need about 500 repetitions. To fix a technique that's wrong takes about 10 times the number of repetitions, because it can be very hard to undo a bad technique that feels right to that individual because they've been doing it wrong for so long. And so therefore, since hearing that, whether it's true or not, it resonated with me, and I felt like it was well worth spending the time at the beginning to get it right, so they don't have to do 10 times as many repetitions to fix the mistake later.
1000%. Like, to riff on that, the business equivalent I see is, we come across clients for one of two reasons. Either they're growing and things get out of control and we can help them get their performance back on track that way, or they've encountered like an iceberg crash, have sunk or are sinking, and we're trying to almost resurrect them. It's like a financial emergency and making the tough calls, and away you go. Now, the interesting thing is that there's a reason to take the latter for a second, where businesses are failing. In Australia, they're going into administration or potentially a liquidation, which would be a death event. But if they go into administration, that's someone else taking over. Say you as the director of the company are basically admitting that, hey, you have failed. I need help. Someone else comes in, takes the reins, starts making some decisions there, and the intention is to try and find a path to continue trading forward. Right? The cat's getting in.
Stop it, Ashley. Come on.
It's awesome.
Cat's trying to escape. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. Cats are cool. But trying to plot a pathway forward through administration. Now, what's interesting is in Australia, some stats came out from ASIC. Something like 3% of businesses that actually go into administration will recover. And I think the reason for that is what they miss is, while they can plot, hey, here is the way that we could, in theory, come out of this, they're not taking the time to recognize why they got there to begin with. Right? What were they doing wrong? How did they not see it coming? How did they arrive in the point where someone else had to take control? Now, only by doing that can you actually, in my opinion, inform a legitimate plan to recover long term. You have to embrace the failure and look at it for what it is. Be honest with yourself. The truth will set you free. Kind of go from there.
Yeah, awesome.
Because if you go and you get the funding, you seek the investment, and then you make the same mistakes, guess what? Oh, hey, I've injured myself deadlifting because of my technique, so I'm out for 6 months with a back injury. Now, the first day I'm back at the gym, I'm just going to lift the same weight with the same technique.
Just going to do that more.
Yeah, good job, mate. Away you go. And the business equivalent is you're not doing your back. So, hey, all those families that are depending on you, and all the employees depending on you making the right decision, they're all out of a job.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
people have made a lot of mistakes on their way to, achieving their health and fitness goals as well. And I think a big part of my role...
The only guarantee is you're going to make mistakes.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And it's something I actually will spell out. I'll go, and like I said, the example of this won't be a straight line, it's going to be a zigzag. There's going to be a lot of mistakes and course correcting. And if you understand that's the journey, it's not evidence that this isn't working. I think that really helps people wrap their mind around not giving up at the first sign of struggle for that resilience, because I've helped a lot of people walk this path before, and you see a lot of common themes. Of course, everyone brings something new and unique, and I don't always know the answer immediately, but often I do, because I've encountered it so often. And
there's a suspicion, an intuition, it's probably this.
Yeah. And connecting it back to what you were saying about learning from mistakes, I feel like when you look at your fear directly, when you stop running from it, it looks a lot less scary than what you imagined. And if you say, okay, if I have the courage to ask some tough questions from the get-go, I can bypass a lot of problems down the track. And I'm sure you do things as well, very similar with your clients. For example, what do you think got in the way of you succeeding last time you tried to do this? Let's just put it on the table. Let's just call it out, So, okay, so we probably therefore need to work on some...
cheeseburgers.
Work on
Palmers.
some... Yeah.
Definitely Palmers.
So good. We definitely need to work on how to make sure that doesn't happen again. So in a way, we're trying to future-proof. We're trying to problem solve before we get to the problem. And why that's so important is it's very easy to fall into a pothole in the road. But how hard is it to pull your car out of that hole once you've driven into it? The front end of the car is in there. So what I can sort of do is
getting off the path, easy, getting back on, harder.
Yeah, so I can stand in front of the big pothole with a couple of red flags. Say, don't drive here. But if you're stubborn, you'll go, no, if I just go faster or harder, maybe I can jump the hole. Maybe I can Dukes of Hazzard it. And I go, well, there might be other ways.
And sometimes they're right. I have that with clients. They'll do something that I vehemently disagree with. Yeah, I'm like, no, I don't think that's right. And you know what? Hey, sometimes they're right.
Well, I think you've got to allow for that, because
it's their decision at the end of the day.
If I'm just sort of saying, I am the word of God, do as I say, it can elicit a lot of kind of negative reaction. Whereas if I say, I'm here to support you and help you, and I'll guide you in the best way I can, but I need you involved in this process. And so I've kind of ended up on this collaborative approach, which I think quite different to a lot of coaches who believe in their methods so well that they say, all right, I've mapped out your next 6 months, here you go do it. But the reason I struggle to do that is because I don't know if any of those exercises are going to cause pain to a joint. I don't know if they're going to like it. I don't know if it's going to fatigue them too much. And then did I waste like 6 months of planning if I can't even do week one? So often what I'll do is I'll start off, I'll talk to someone, I'll problem solve, I'll figure out what their why is, their goal, find out all these important details, the fact finding. How often can you work out realistically? Not what you read in a magazine is optimal, but what do you believe you can truly commit to? And let's start there. And then let me find a method or a strategy that's going to fit your personality and your goals. And this is touching on what we identified with you. Was very clear early on when we started experimenting that you're not into complexity. So anything that requires too much coordination.
It's not just up, down, left, right.
Yeah. Just give me some weights and let me move it in one direction at a time. And once we found that what you liked, it was very easy to program. And once that was the case, you fell in love with it because you were looking forward to it. It was movements that you enjoyed that got you the results that you wanted. If I had said, no, it's Olympic rings and it's boxing or nothing, like I would have lost you as a client. and you would have hated it, and we would not be sitting here today. So I've never felt like that it's a one size fits all. I've really always believed that not only do you want to make the strategy appropriate and goal oriented for that person, you also want them to, as much as possible, enjoy the process as they can, because it's not comfortable. And as we identified earlier, a lot of discomfort's going to be triggered as this process starts. Sore muscles, we call it DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, in response to lifting weights or challenging your muscles beyond what they were comfortable with. Yeah. And I try to pre-identify these phenomenons with that person if they're just getting into it, because they might think I've broken them the next day if I didn't explain that they're probably going to be a bit sore. Yeah. And why they're going to be a bit sore? Because every time they lift a weight close to their limit, they're going to create microscopic tears in their muscle tissue. Just like any injury on the body's going to send blood, nutrients, and inflammatory markers to that site to try and heal it. It will feel a bit sore in response.
It's a non-linear equation.
Yes.
It doesn't go like this. You actually go backwards before you go forwards.
You do.
It's the same thing in business. You want to grow. Typically what you will see is your margins go down before they go up, and you need to fund for the gap. But identifying just what the duration, and it's different for every business, has a different economic engine behind it. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand, hey, what's the duration of that gap and what's its depth? And now that helps you understand the funding to figure out, hey, what's growth going to look like? What's growth going to cost? What are you going to get back? And hey, are you even ready to pull the trigger on that? So a lot of businesses get caught up in just hitting the growth pedal too hard, too early. Yeah. They're undercapitalized. Almost like lifting too much weight. Yeah, you can, but you get that extra 1 or 2 reps, but you bust yourself in the process.
Yeah.
You can't come back the next day or the next appropriate day for training. You don't take the time to recover. Some are just grow. You see it in tech startups is typical for that.
Oh yeah,
you get a heap of funding, grow, not making any money.
Yeah.
You've got to, and to continue your investment, in the worst case, it can turn into almost like a Ponzi scheme where you've got to keep getting more and more equity and further diluting your equity position. You get the funding to extend your runway to maybe take off, and you never do. And to a certain extent, there's a positivity to that, because hey, they're out there experimenting and having a crack, and not every business is meant to survive. There's a purpose behind that. There's some innovation that comes in it as well. But most of our clients are industrial. They're manufacturing companies, trade service businesses. They're making, moving, maintaining that makes up civilization. So they're in it for the long haul. He's going to jump up, let him.
He's totally going to jump up.
Get him up. No, don't let him. Get him up there.
The claws are out. I was getting nervous.
Yeah. No, let's start clawing in there.
So if you can identify as many of those potential problems in advance, it's a lot less scary for the person, because you're like, when they encounter the thing that you describe to them that they're going to encounter, they just go, oh, right.
Oh, this is that.
Yeah. Whereas
So
if you didn't mention it, it'd be like panic, something's wrong. This isn't working, and
you're still moving forward. You're just moving forward at a slightly slower rate than you were before, but you're still moving forward. Give it time.
So delayed onset muscle soreness is one of those things that I'll often flag with people to be aware of is coming, so it doesn't freak them out. Another thing I do is talk about the change process, and this is something I learned as a life coach. And this, for me, is a simple thing, but it's so powerful, and I find that it really makes a huge difference for people when they go through this process. And this is the key concept. Regression is a part of the change process, and regression can be identified as mistakes, eating the wrong thing, skipping a workout, not doing the thing you said you were going to do. Because what often happens with people is, if they observe themselves avoiding the things that they know they need to do in order to get the results that they want to get, they start beating themselves up mercilessly. And what can often happen is that they can say, well, this is evidence that I'm crap and I'm not going to succeed with this, because I ate a piece of pizza. And I'm like, well, what if it doesn't mean that you're rubbish and this isn't going to work, but what you're experiencing is very normal, common, and actually a part of you improving? Because what happens is we're all comfortable in where we're at today, right? And if I ask you or anyone to do something different to what you do now, it's going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning. You could liken it to stretching a bungee rope, a rubber band. And the more you ask someone to move from their comfort zone, the more that rubber band gets stretched. And the more powerful its inclination to whip them back to their comfort zone. So I try not to pull people too far out of their comfort zone, but get used to being uncomfortable often. And then identifying that it's in the process of getting uncomfortable often that they get what they want to get.
Those little incremental changes.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's the same thing when we're talking about, hey, in order to grow a business or have it recover, well, what are the decisions along the way? What assets do we need to invest in? What do we stop doing? What do we start doing? So on and so forth. What changes? And we look for incremental ways. What is the smallest change that we could make practically, and then measure its impact?
Yeah.
Now, all of that has to be wrapped around time, right? Sometimes the time pressure is condensed, and if that's the case, then you need to make very, very tough, large decisions. Usually that's the case. You're making big calls, and they're far tougher ones, almost instantaneously. And that's like the emergency decision. And you see that with businesses restructure all the time. But usually through a growth period, what we're looking at is, hey, what little incremental things can we be making? So all the universe of things you could do, of all the exercises you could do in the world, which ones would you actually do and why? And you need limiting factors to reduce your decisions. Otherwise it's just overwhelming. Hey, cool, I should exercise. Okay, cool. Do I go for a run? Do I lift weights? Do I stretch? Where do I go for a run? What's the weather like? What equipment do I have?
Yes.
What's sore today? How? Blah, 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 blah. So you actually need to limit your choices down, and you can do that through, well, hey, what time scale are we on? How much funding do we have? And what is the smallest thing we could do? And because, hey, we're trying to plan for flexibility. Yes, we have a plan, but you need to be flexible, not rigid. But that's a balance as well. And then actually, as you go, using one return to reinvest into the next. It's sort of that compound effect, if you can achieve that. And just because one thing doesn't work doesn't mean you're necessarily on the wrong strategy. Sometimes it's that tactical retreat. They're like, hey, yeah, actually, we're not going to go there. Yeah, we opened up that little shop. We thought that would work. Actually, it didn't. No, we're going to pull out. That doesn't mean the growth strategy is wrong. But we need to go east instead of west. But at least we know that now. We didn't spend $1 million. Hey, we spent 10 grand.
Yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't even move the needle on the margin.
Yeah. It triggers so many sort of side thoughts that I'm just excited and want to say like so many things on that subject. And again, I know that you'll relate because there's so many parallels. But one is that as a coach, I've learned that the less I ask someone to change at one time, the more successful at it they are. A great analogy is like a 5-watt light bulb. It doesn't emit a lot of light, but a 5-watt laser can cut through a 1/4 inch of steel. So that's the power of focus. So if someone says, I'm sick of everything, tell me what I have to do. Lay it out for me. I'm ready, coach. And I'll be like,
Are you really?
If I gave them everything like a pro would be doing right now, I'd be doing them a disservice. Because it would be too much, too soon, too overwhelming and unsustainable.
What's the one thing?
That's right. So that's the thing that you said that made me think of something I often tell particularly new clients getting into this. What's the easiest thing that we can change that will have the most profound benefit to your life? Because I want to get someone into a rhythm of success. I want them to, it's kind of like why the military says make your bed in the morning. So start with an achievement, right? So you create achievement momentum. So if I can get them some success early on, then it starts to reinforce positive things inside them in terms of their belief in themselves and qualities that they admire about themselves and an inclination to want to keep going. Whereas if I just was like a cowboy PT and I just smashed them within an inch of their life on their first PT session and made them vomit, what do you think the chances of them coming back to me would be, right?
Depends on the person.
You come back because you're a masochist.
I'll come back once.
Yeah. Whereas if I said, okay, let's say they're not drinking enough water, like that's easily the first go-to, right? Because if you're not drinking enough water and you're walking around dehydrated, chances are you're imbibing a lot of unnecessary calories in the stuff you are drinking that's not water, unless it's sugar-free or tea, or I explain all that to them. But by increasing water, they're going to increase their resting metabolic rate. They're going to help their body flush out toxins and waste. They're going to speed up fat burning, and they're going to improve their concentration and so many other important biological processes that will move them in the right direction. Now, if they're drinking like two glasses of water a day, it's not reasonable for me to ask them to go to 3 liters from there. So what I might do is say, do you reckon you could have 1 more glass of water a day this week? How sure are you? And a strategy I'll use is out of 10, how sure are you? Like a scale. And if I hear anything less than a 9 or a 10, confirmation of certainty that I'm going to go and do that thing, then I'll renegotiate with them until it's so easy that it is a 9 or 10. So for example, if I said, do you think you could add a litre of water to your daily intake over the next week? Okay, yeah, I could. Out of 10, how sure are you you're going to do that every day until I see you next week? 6 out of 10, sure. So I know it's probably not going to be effective.
Yeah.
And I'll renegotiate it until it's a 9 or a 10. So I said, well, what do you think about 2 cups of water on top of what you're already drinking? How sure will you be that you could do that? And they might say, well, that's like an 8. What about 1? Oh, that's a 10. Anyone could. And I want to get it to the point that it's so easy that they're like almost rolling their eyes going, any idiot could do that. Great, let's start there. And as they observe themselves successfully doing that thing, they go, I'm on board, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And what happens is their inner voice changes. And it goes from, I'm the sort of person who avoids, talks about, never starts, or starts and never finishes, or to someone who's like, I committed to drinking an extra cup of water a day for 7 days and I did it. And then they come back so proud, Coach, I did it. What now? I go, well done. Okay, now.
You can't stay there.
Yeah.
Can't do that for a year.
That's right.
What's actually going to change? But it's a pretty powerful change in the beginning.
It's creating a habit of change.
Yeah.
And understanding that it's.
But you've got to hold on to that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, there is a building block, that is a foundation that we're going to build on top of. So, hey, you don't go back to drinking less water. No, it's this.
Yeah.
We find the same thing with companies' financial health, where it's like, hey, they're making money, but they got no cash flow. Hey, they're not chasing who owes them money. That's out of control. Hey, guys, we need to focus there. Don't grow, because if you grow and exacerbate that problem, you might have rising revenue and your bank account's actually declining. It blows people's minds. It's like, hey, fix the receivables problem. It's like, hey, we're going to take this entire month and just call everybody who owes you money. And let's see what we can do to cash flow. Right? You get one. It may or may not work. You'll identify the problems. Bang, you get like a shot in the arm. It's almost like an adrenaline shot because you get that. Great, cool, all the cash comes in. But now you've got to keep that habit up.
Yeah.
And that becomes the focus. So it's like, hey, that's now your new norm. Cool. Oh, you feel what that's like? Yeah, cool, great. That's got to be your new normal. So what policies, what procedures, what people, what investments, what systems, what do we need to wrap around that to establish that as a new normal, and then we grow from there. Yeah. Or it might be price. You see it all the time. The companies haven't changed their price. It's just, dude, inflation's running at 5%. Cool. Just do 2. Watch what happens. Did you lose any customers? Who's a good customer, bad customer? Who in your customer list would you not want to work with now, knowing what you know about them? Cool. Just change that price. See what happens. You know, maybe there's a way we can actually maybe we can get more work by reducing price and increasing it for some others. And now all of a sudden we're bringing more, solving a receivables problem as well, because those customers that don't pay, let's jack their price up. And all of a sudden the customers that do pay, maybe we can reduce their price, get more revenue, and that actually increases the cash flow as well. And now all of a sudden we're in a better position to grow. So it's just kind of understanding that. But sometimes, you can identify that as an issue. Sometimes you've got to work through a priority order as well, because you just can't tackle everything at once.
Mm-hmm.
So like you say, hey, we're going to start with basic hydration. Forget nutrition, we're just going to start with hydration.
Yeah.
And on top of that, hey, now we've got you thinking about nutrition. Okay, cool, and let's go down that road before you even get into physical activity.
You're building and establishing new habits and disciplines that are going to create more success more often. And then it's a stepping stone. Like you said, you go up from there. Okay, now this is our new normal. Now let's add another glass of water, or let's add a serve of vegetables, or let's increase your protein, or for a lot of people who come to the gym for the first time, their definition of success is just coming to the gym regularly. Don't mind what they do when they get there, but walking into a gym, swiping in, putting their stuff in a locker, walking out with their towel and their water bottle in their stuff and going, I'm in a gym now. Like, that's massive for a lot of people, and that's a huge obstacle to be overcome.
I'd say the equivalent for people is just starting a business. So many people want to. So many people want to go to the gym, want to be healthier, want to be better.
Yeah.
Cool. So many people want to start a business. Hey, cool, just starting. And then once you start just showing up,
turning up,
continue to show up.
Because the more often they turn up and do the right things, the more successful they'll be, and it will feel like magic, but it's not.
Attempt to do the right things.
Yeah. So, do the things that create opportunities for success more often, and you'll find success more often. It makes a lot of sense.
Funny that.
Yeah. So, if they find that you teach them to add an extra task to their day or their week that brings money in, that reduces debt, that makes people pay their bills more often, and they're like, wow, that was good, that was great. And it's like a shower. Just because you had one doesn't mean you're going to be clean forever. Like, you're clean now, it feels good now, but guess what? You're going to need another shower tomorrow and another one the day after that. So keep doing that, and maybe, your business will improve, and you can shine a light on those things for your clients. That'll make a profound difference to their lives and their businesses, and I do that for people in the physical realm. But it's a very similar process. Yeah, it's rad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Mate, thank you so much for your time. We really enjoy talking with you. I want to wrap up with one last question. When it comes to your world, personal training, helping people with their physical health, mental well-being, and whatnot, if you had that proverbial silver bullet to solve any problem that you encounter in your world, what would it be and why?
I think there's something to be said for just starting. So a lot of people will overthink things and aim for perfection, and that's the reason why they don't make progress. Analysis paralysis. I've often said, and I've posted this in social media videos that I've shared with my followers and clients, that the imperfect workout that you do is going to have far more profound benefits to you than the perfect one that you don't do. And I've seen this theme recurring in lots of different facets. I was looking at maybe starting a YouTube channel one day, and they were saying, just hit record, see what happens, stop thinking. And they went on to show all these awful videos of some of their earliest content, of stumbling on their words and voices breaking and terrible lighting. But it's in the process.
Literally what we're doing.
Yeah, right. I think the lighting's all right. But in the process of realizing and trying it and going, wow, this could be so much better, it then starts to trigger the responses, that the questions that lead to answers and solutions that you then incrementally improve on along the way. So just get started. is it just putting on your runners and going for a walk? Like, even if your goal was to run a marathon, you can start with just walking and then maybe jogging for a little bit until you run out of breath, and then walk again until your breath recovers, and then jog a little bit more. You're going to end up jogging more than you would have if you just said, I'm going to go for a 20-minute jog, and then you didn't do it because it was too intimidating and you ran out of time. Walk, jog for a bit, walk. Start there. Start somewhere. Do something more than you're currently doing that's going to move you in the direction of the outcome that you desire. And that is, like, it's very simple, but a lot of people miss that.
Yeah.
And
seek and ye shall find.
yeah. And give yourself permission to not be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine. We all make mistakes. The people you look up to and admire in life, and whatever facet of life that is, whether it's business or financial or physical or family or social, you might look at them and go, wow, I could never be like that, and use it as a demotivating stimulus, right? Or you could admire them and say to yourself, and I'll often reframe it like this to some of my clients who are struggling with self-belief. When you look around a gym and you see all these fit and healthy and muscular people, and you're just like, I don't belong here because I'm not like that. What if one day they were exactly where you're at, and they're just a little further down the timeline of practicing and figuring out and making mistakes than you are? What if they're actually a crystal ball for you of your future, an example of how you could look if you just made a decision and stuck to this? Be inspired by other people, and then challenge yourself to not lose sight of the things that you want to achieve, and just keep going, and understand that sometimes you'll make mistakes and it's okay. Allow yourself to not be perfect, but just never give up trying. And just dust yourself off if you fall over, and just remind yourself, why am I here again? What was I doing? Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to lose 5 kilos. I wanted to get trim. I wanted to have more energy. I wanted to be able to play with my kids. I don't want to die of diabetes like, you know, my dad or whatever. Not that my dad died of diabetes, but just as an example, you can then change your life in a really positive way if you just start and don't give up. And if you feel like you don't know how to do it, then have the humility and the wisdom and the insight to ask for help from someone who's an expert at helping people, who's walked the path before and guided many people through that new territory of uncertainty. And then you may find that you just needed them to hold your hand for a little bit to get you going.
And then you're off and running.
And then you're off and running. Or you might decide, you know what, I love the support, I love the education, I love connecting with this person, my life's better with them in it. I know that what I do has inspired you and Eugenia, but you guys have also inspired me too, because I can draw the map, I can show you how to do it and how to follow it, but then it's kind of up to you. And then when you take that on and embrace that and do the things that I've suggested, and then your life changes for the better, like that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's what gives me a burst of adrenaline. That gives me tremendous satisfaction, because I know that if I do nothing else right in my life, I've had a positive impact on you guys. And I want to leave the world a better place than what I found it. And when I see, you know, Ev's health improve, when I see you telling me you're feeling fitter and stronger than you've ever been, and you're an ex-soldier, that's amazing to hear, right? That's what drives me every day.
I think, just to wrap up, there's something interesting in what you said about, hey, your answer to that silver bullet question, so just giving people the ability to start. And what you finished with is like, hey, recognize that by you starting, you don't even know all the ways that you're going to positively impact and influence people around you, because they see you jumping on the path and trying to get after whatever it is you're getting after. Just by doing that, it's not about whether you win or or lose. It's the fact that you're on that path trying to do that has a positive impact on the world.
Yeah.
And using that.
You don't know who you're inspiring or
Yeah,
motivating
you don't know,
along the way.
you may never know, but
Yeah.
we all find out one day. So, perfect. Josh, thank you so much, mate. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.